again. Welcome everyone. Hello, hello. We are here in this amazing kitchen with Chef Jeff Silver of Jackson's, and we are really excited to be talking today about some of the projects that you've got going on, some really cool new things, and just about this really interesting and strange and difficult year that it's been. We're here on Earth Day, so we're going to talk a little bit about some of your garden projects, and we've got some wines. We have some East Block Chardonnay and some Petit Perto. So we were just talking about some of the interesting challenges that you've had. So now that everyone can hear you,
we'll start over.
We'll start over, yes.
So, well, to give a little background, my wife Regina and I opened Syrah, which was our California French bistro in 1999, so a little over 22 years ago. And the idea was to have a bistro in wine country, and I wanted to be up in this area. My uncle owns the Oliver's Markets locally here, and so my mom and me and my family always came up here for Christmas, and we really wanted to have that symbiotic relationship between food and wine. And I always say that, you know, if 1 and 1 is 2, wine pairing should be 1 and 1 should equal 3,
right?
Because it should be better than the 2, and so that's really what we wanted to do with Syrah.
And I had so many amazing, wonderful dinners there. It was just such a lovely place. It was kind of like a reward place to go and have a nice meal. Back when I was with Jackson Family Wines.
Yeah, they were very generous with us always. And
well, your food was really phenomenal and paired so beautifully with all the wines.
Yeah, they make some great wines. And so, you know, we opened that, and then we made it through 9/11, which was crazy. And then in 2008, after the crash, we changed it to Petit Syrah, doing smaller plates, and it never like fleshed out how I wanted it. And then after a while, we made it 3 Squares Cafe, and that never really fleshed out. Like I wanted, you know, this California French bistro, and I changed it, and I wasn't in love with the other concepts. But in the meantime, we had opened Jackson's Bar and Oven, and Jackson's was predicated on the idea of where do I want to go eat, and we had a 5-year-old son at the time. Where do we want to go eat with him? And after cooking all the fancy French food, so what do I want, you know? And so we had to put in a big wood-burning oven, because chefs are like that, and
yes.
You know, pizzas and, you know, mussels and squid out of the oven, and chicken wings. We had to have good chicken wings. I couldn't find good chicken wings anywhere in Sonoma County, and so that was, you know, a must. And so we opened Jackson's and never looked back. You know, we ended up selling 3 Squares, and the restaurant was doing fantastic. We were right before the pandemic. My wife and my general manager were standing outside the restaurant, watching the AC hotel go up where the parking lot was.
Oh, yes.
You know, 144 rooms across the street, and we had just picked up a couple of new catering things, and that was going to be very fruitful. And we were just going, man, this is going to be the best year ever. And then boom, the other shoe drops, the pandemic. So very challenging. You know, my son in his 2nd year of high school, we had to all figure out Zoom and how does that work, and then, you know, the restaurant was limited seating, and then you could be in, and you could be out, and then all of that, just absolute craziness. And then we were like only doing to go, and that's not what we're built on. You know, Ken and I were standing there going, this is horrible. This is just not us. Like, we're looking at all this to go food, you know, and bless the county, they really supported us and was very generous and all of that, but it's just not us, you know. Doing tons of to-go food, you know, seeing all the hard work go into a little box that somebody's gonna cart off was just heartbreaking.
Well, while it may not feel like hospitality, I mean, for those of us who were able to do really good quality takeout, it was.
There's that, yes. No,
it was pretty awesome for those of us who, normally would never order to go from.
Right, and we've always done to-go food. I mean, pizzas are good, but
yeah, I know that's not why you thought it.
But yeah, it's just not the hospitality aspect of what we do, and when I used to cook at Syrah, we used to do tasting menus, and we had a little bar at the this chef's table bar kind of thing, and that was like my favorite part. Is it's such immediate gratification. You cook something, you put it on the plate, and you get to watch them enjoy it.
Right.
And just to me, that's like the joy.
Right.
So
it's been a long time since you got to do that, but finally, we're both fully vaccinated. So we get to sit down and have a conversation over a glass of wine.
Which I love. A couple of glasses of wine.
Yes, and hopefully getting us back very quickly to doing that kind of hospitality and the connecting with your guests.
And we are. I went in the bar the other day, and there was these two regulars who literally I've known for over 20 years, who sat at the tasting bar at Syrah and would order, and I walked into Jackson's and they were sitting at the bar, and it just gave me such a sense of relief. You know what I mean? Like, just, this is so nice. I got regulars at the bar drinking.
I love that.
Yeah, so it was fantastic.
We need to dive into the wines
and
cheers to regular guests, in-person conversations without masks, and a return to some normalcy. So I decided that I would bring this East Block Chardonnay for our conversation because I thought it would go so beautifully with one of my favorite dishes at your restaurant, the Lobster Mac and Cheese. It's like a must-have, and it's so rich and indulgent, but I love it. It's just delicious. And I know you made
I made a little nosh.
Really fancy food here, and so we've got lobster
and avocado toast.
Avocado. How perfect! Is this a new dish that you're going to be offering at the restaurant?
No, this is just for you.
Just
for you.
Wow, I'm very fortunate.
I thought a good conversation over a glass of wine goes better with a nibble.
It does.
And so this is just a little avocado with a little ginger, a little creme fraiche, a little lime, and then some lobster and some chives, and then for the Petit Perto, which we're going to get into.
Yeah.
And since I hadn't had it, so when you asked me like what to try, I was like, I want to try something different. Fantastic. So I looked on your website and you had a recipe paired with pulled pork.
Yes.
And so I thought, well...
Oh no, you looked at my recipe? I was so embarrassed.
Well, I didn't look at the recipe.
Okay.
I just looked at the pairing.
You didn't look at the video. Okay.
No, I didn't see it. I was like, okay, I just wanted to read about the wine and, to get an idea. And so it was pulled pork, so I thought I would use something similar but different. Very different. So I made another toast.
Yeah. And
this one has Gios, which is this kind of sweet, caramely Swiss from Switzerland cheese, but it's this really. My grandparents used to eat it, and it's kind of weird, but good. And so we have that with some mushrooms cooked with a little Madeira, and then some smoked duck breast.
Oh, much fancier than my pulled pork, but
it's toast.
Yes, and I'm not a chef.
And it's just a little bite, a nibble.
Yes. Well, this has been a weird year of creating content and trying to connect with guests ourselves because we've also been closed down much of the year in terms of being able to taste in person. So we've instead been doing it this way, tasting online and tasting and sharing and talking with everyone via Facebook and Instagram and via our webinars that we've posted now, several of these. So we've all gotten a little bit better about technology despite the audio issues at the beginning of our broadcast. So what do you think of the Chardonnay? So this Chardonnay is, for me, just the perfect balance where it just threads the needle between richness and yet, the full expression of flavors, and yet it's still really elegant. Douglas Danielak, our winemaker, talks about this wine as kind of sitting on the head of a pin. Just exactly everything
in balance.
Everything about it's still light in its feet, but it's got a richness.
It's very lovely. It does have a richness, and it's got nice acidity, which is always good with food. And like I always think of wine not as wine, but more as food.
Yes.
And it's chefs do that, I think, more than winemakers. It's when I was younger, I got to go to this amazing Pinot tasting at Linmar Winery, and they did Russian River Pinots. And it was 5 or 6 winemakers and 2 chefs. And they were all brown bag Pinots, all Russian River, all higher end. And they poured them out, and we listed in order of what we liked. And me and the other chefs, our order was similar, like, 1 or 2 different here. And it was the exact opposite of the winemakers.
More maybe food oriented.
Very much food oriented, and very much looking at wine as food, not as they're seeing the flaws. And it's like when I go to a restaurant, it's hard not to like check out the service and check out this. They're looking for all of the flaws and the goods and the bads, and we're looking at how does it taste and how is it going to relate to food. And it was a really interesting kind of tasting for me. So
what a fun experience. And I think the best winemakers really are able to bring in that culinary piece to their winemaking. Douglas is a foodie as well, and I know you've done a lot of collaboration with some of our owners, Kelly and Jim Bailey.
Oh, yes.
And they absolutely are just so engaged in food and wine pairings.
Very
and
much.
It's really a part of what we do every day at Knightsbridge, and we're really thinking a lot about how does this wine work with food, and does it work with food? Because if it doesn't, it needs to have a place at the table, and so every wine is considered in that way.
And it's very odd. I mean, I love going up there and catering with Jim and Kelly.
And we love having you.
Yeah, but it to me, I always like catering somewhere where the wines are so good. It just makes my job easier, and I always try and, when I cater at a winery, it's not about me, it's about how to make the wine shine. Because that's what I'm getting hired to do. But it's so fun and Kelly her palate's amazing, and so she's so fun to collaborate with and make food for.
Oh, absolutely. Well, it's a wonderful place to be culturally, because food is central, and getting those pairings just right.
And it's so beautiful. And I saw the caves are being dug out.
Yes.
Pretty amazing.
We have so much progress to report on. The above ground structure, which is our fermentation building, has. Please go right ahead. I'm going to do that in just a moment. That's nearly complete, and now it's really sort of the very exciting aspect of starting to put in the equipment, getting the tanks, and it's moving along so rapidly. So we're really looking forward to having, in October, we'll be having guests there.
Wow.
We will be welcoming guests to the winery and tasting
exciting.
with them, giving them tours, and just in a few short months. So I can't wait to have you up there.
I can't wait to go.
Walk through those caves together.
Yeah, the property's amazing.
It is. It is just absolutely stunning. And I think for those of you who are unfamiliar with Knights Valley, it's just one of those, it's just around the hill from where you are.
It really
but
is.
But it's really a bucolic and really kind of magical place.
It really is.
Just rural and very secluded and special.
Mm-hmm.
So our second wine is the Petit Perto. So this is a wine that you haven't tasted of ours. I know you've tasted almost all of our wines in the past. We just made a very small amount, like less than 2 barrels of this wine, 45 cases. And we bottle aged it for 3 years because, Petit Perto is just this big, usually very structured, very tannic wine, and it just needed a little bit of softening. But back in 2015, when this Petit Perto came off of, we have just a few acres planted, it was normally always blended into our Cabernet.
As one does.
Yes, this year it was just too good to blend away. So decided bottle it standalone, give it some really nice time in bottle, and then release it. So we only have about 10 cases left. So as well with the 2017 East Block Chardonnay, but we do have a little bit of it left, and it's just a really interesting wine, I think, to pair with your cuisine. I mean,
it really
I'm thinking
is
like the burger with the truffle fries, which is another indulgence.
Yep.
You have such wonderful pizzas and all sorts of wonderful things from the oven.
This would also go great with our steak. I have to say, I love our steak. It's one of my favorite steaks in the county. We just do a little maitre d' butter on it, a little lovely salad with arugula and some red onion and fries, of course. Gotta have freaks with it, and the steak juices and the garlic butter gets all mixed in, and
now that's not something you can do to go very well, probably.
Actually, you know what? That does hold up.
Wow.
Because the fries get all that steak juice in them.
Oh, uh-huh.
Because fries to go are never going to be amazing.
Right.
They're going to be good, but they're so much better when they're just right out, fresh. We buy canning back potatoes, which is a certain variety which is best for frying. We hand cut them, and then we blanch them in hot oil at a lower temperature, and then we cool them, and then we refry them just to get them super crisp and delicious, and that really potatoey flavor. And with all the meat juices and garlic butter, that one holds up good.
Well, now everyone knows your secret.
Yeah.
Double frying.
You have to, but it's also the canning back potato itself. The starch sugar ratio is really good, but double frying is always really good with fries, and you just do it at a lower, like 300 the first one, and then 375 the second one.
I'm going to try this because, fries at home, homemade fries, not the frozen kind, is something I've definitely not conquered yet. And I didn't know I needed to double fry them.
That's the secret.
I'm going to do this. I actually have a fryer.
So do I.
Yeah. I mean, not a commercial fryer, but as close as I can come to that.
A little Warren one there.
Yeah. It's a little bit of probably not the healthiest way to cook, but it's certainly
delicious.
Yeah. To have the immersion element and keep that oil hot, you just can't.
For the recovery time, it's the best. There's a little saying we have in the restaurant business: if you fry it, they will buy it, and it's true.
Yeah, well, and I'll eat it. So I think that this is probably going to be just so perfect with these mushrooms.
I'm going to try this, yeah.
Yeah. So let me know what you think about this pairing, and maybe we're going to expand the menu here at Jackson's, or at least think about it. I absolutely love mushrooms and the Petit Perto. I think it's one of those kinds of.
Oh, you need to try it. This is working.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I'm going to.
I'll talk for you so people.
Yes, please.
Don't feel the dead air. But I used to
oh my God.
have a radio show, which is kind of weird to have a live cooking show on the radio. I'll grant you that. But we also had a live. You got to take a bite though. You got to get the cheese.
Okay, so this is going to be.
You really got to get the whole thing.
This is not going to be really pretty.
It doesn't need to be. It's food. Food's meant to be eaten. And so in this radio show, we would have a guest chef on, and we would make food live, and there was a live audience, and we would let them taste it, and it was a lot of fun. But what do you think? That cheese and just gives it that little bit of a sweetness and that background umami.
But
with this, it's so
then
good.
Kind of the high notes of the duck. Oh my goodness. Well, I'm going to have to, if you don't mind, I'm going to have to ask you for the recipe, and I will post that on our blog and put a link in at the bottom of when we finish up here.
I will try and recreate it in my.
We could approximate it.
Yeah, it's basically toast, which I did in the broiler, and then I melted that cheese, and then the mushrooms though I cooked with butter, shallots, a little Madeira, and a little porcini mushroom powder. It just kind of amp up the flavor, which is the secret. And then the smoked duck breast I buy at Oliver's, and I buy it here all the time at my house just because I like it. And that's kind of it.
So Josh, I'd love to hear a little bit about, I mean, you have a wonderful family history of culinary, and how if that informed you, you know, in terms of your decision to get into
very much
to
so.
be a chef.
Very
I think
much so.
I would imagine if you're surrounded by great food, it sort of becomes a part of what you're doing. But tell us about how did you decide to become a chef?
Well, my dad was a chef
Yes.
for many years, and then he became a kitchen designer.
Mm.
But
Did he have anything?
no, he unfortunately passed away before I got to have him help me with this. But and my parents got divorced early on when I was younger, and when I would go to my dad's, a lot of times he would take me to food shows where he would lecture. So I learned an incredible amount about design attending a lot of his lectures. And he wrote a couple of books, and we would talk food and talk design all the time. And one of the things I do love is design, and I got to design my restaurants with help, of course. My interior designer, Neva B, just amazing at Jackson's, and helped me with Sorala. But my dad, there's a picture of him over there with James Beard. I inherited probably 2,500 cookbooks from him. The copper you see over there, I inherited from him. So just a love affair with food with my father that whole time. Like I remember, you know, hanging out with him and us just going and trying all the bread pudding we could, just to do a deep dive on bread pudding, which is one of my favorite things.
I love it.
And then my mother was just an amazing cook. She was just such a fantastic cook that I got to learn from her. And my grandparents. Every year in our family, we have Christmas goose with the German red cabbage, the boiled potatoes with the goose fat. So my family's always been very involved in art and food. And my uncle, like I said, he owns Oliver's Markets, and so he's been involved in food. So my whole life has been around food. And when I was a teenager, a little younger than my son, I was not as such a good guy as him. I was a bad kid. I had issues, and me and the school did not really think that school was the right place for me. So I got a job as a dishwasher. My mom said, I'll give you a month, then you have to do something. The next day I was washing dishes, and I had this amazing chef who would teach me prep and everything. And when he left the restaurant, I didn't stay very long. And then I got a job as a busboy at the Santa Fe Bar and Grill, which was, you know, pretty famous back when I got the job there in the 80s. Or it was actually the 70s, it was 79. But I was still not a good kid.
So you rebelled your way into becoming a chef in a restaurant.
Yeah, I was like just not, I mean, you know, I was running around and not just, and so my mom called my dad and said, you know, you gotta do something with this guy. He needs to figure some stuff out. And he called the chef that he had trained, and I got a job at a restaurant called the City Hotel in Columbia, California. And back then it was an amazing, like you couldn't do that restaurant today. It was all cart service. These are salads, made table sides. Old school. You ordered a duck. We cooked a duck from raw, which is unusual back then. You know, on the menu it said 45 minutes. They would flambe it, and they would carve it, and chateaubriand, you know, all those kinds of things. Really old school French. Baked Alaska's made to order, souffles made to order. And I started as a dishwasher, and I worked my way up to sous chef, and that was my foundational education. And then I worked a couple other places, and then I got a job at Mustard's Grill in the mid-'80s.
What an institution to have
an amazing opportunity. I mean, Cindy Paulson, she's amazing. And then our chef was Wendy Little, and she was amazing. And it was so not the old school cooking that I had done.
Right.
And so
fresh, new, cutting edge California cuisine.
Yeah, it's truck stop deluxe. I mean, we had ribs, we had burgers, you know, we had lots of other amazing food. But it really like informed how I like to cook. So I like, not many of my friends, I can still flute a mushroom, and not many of my chef friends can do that, because that's how old school I am. But I really learned like the more California way. You know, we cooked everything over oak, you know, on the grill at Mustard's, and we had a smoker. And I learned Spanish because I was the only non-Spanish speaking person in the kitchen at night, and I was in charge. So I had to learn Spanish. I mean, which was fun.
So instead of taking Spanish, you're rebelling your way into, I love it, into language learning and an incredible career.
Oh, well, and you know, the thing about food and wine to me is you get to learn something every day.
Yes.
And so instead of going to high school, I got a GED, but I love to learn. And I think when people don't go through like the whole school system, they always feel like they're a little behind, so we try and make up for it by learning. So I read voraciously, and in food and wine, I mean, I've been doing this, I'm 57, and that's all I've never had another job except work in restaurants. And I think like my food knowledge is like, if the body was the knowledge of food, I got like this much. I don't know if it's just,
I'm going to give you a down to the elbow.
Honestly, no. I mean, if you think about what food and wine is and how many avenues you can go down, it's endless. You know, I mean, like we do, you know, California, American food at the restaurant mostly, but if you just think about Middle Eastern cuisine or Chinese cuisine or German, like the deep dives you can go into all of this, and wine, the different wine regions and the different, I mean, there's grapes. How do you even pronounce that? Like, you know, I mean, it's amazing the amount of things that you get to learn when you're in this field.
It is, and for me, I would say my wine knowledge after 22 years is less than part of my pinky nail, because it is exactly like you're saying. It's this vast world that's always changing.
Always changing. Always
so there's always something new to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And every vintage is an opportunity to dive into the wine, get to know the grapes, get to know the land, get to know all of the weather conditions. You know, this 2015 Petit Perto was at the end of about a 4 or 5 year drought period here in California. So, you know, the vines were pretty stressed at that point.
And they like that.
They do.
Well, the winemakers like that.
Yes, up to a certain point, but it absolutely informed this wine. And I love that there's a little bit of history in every single vintage. So multiply that by the number of varieties and growing regions and winemakers. Oh my goodness, it's infinite.
It's infinite. So you never have the opportunity to stop learning. And I just consider myself a lifelong student. You know, and so here we built this house, and I've never been a farmer or I've never really grown things. Last year we grew some herbs out on the back deck, and it was amazing. Like, my basil did so well. And this year we have 6 big tubs that when we dug a pool, so I had them put, you know, the dirt in, and wild mustard just grew out of them. And then we tilled that in, and we put soil amendment, and we have topsoil, so we're going to grow some tomatoes and peppers and stuff for the restaurant and stuff for home. You know, like lettuce, because we eat a lot of lettuce. And so it's another whole adventure of food and wine is I get to start to grow some things. I have a friend, Jeff Mall, who he and I wrote a cookbook together. He used to have a restaurant called Zen when I had a restaurant called Syrah. And so we were, you know, and he was a lifelong farmer, so I'm calling him, hey, what do I do with this? And what do you know? And so it's so exciting, you know, just to be able to learn and grow and do things.
Well, on that note, I am just thrilled to know that you're back doing what you love and exploring.
We are back,
and growing a garden. I hope all of you are inspired to try this recipe, try
this
wine.
Petit Perto. It is fantastic.
And maybe try your hand at gardening. Those of you who regularly watch our broadcasts know that we have a garden at my house as well as at the vineyard. And so we'll be showing you gardening from the vineyard and as the spring season progresses and as we get into summer, we'll be able to share some of the amazing tomatoes and peppers and things that we can grow here in Northern California. You'll have to actually, you'll have to come up and take a peek and maybe snag some of the delicious estate-grown vegetables that
Oh, I
we'll
would
have.
love to, yes.
So Josh, thank you so much.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. This was really delightful.
It has been a wonderful conversation over a nice glass of wine, and I'm just really happy to know that Jackson's is back up and running, hosting guests in person.
In person, we're 50%.
For dining indoors.
Yeah.
No more blowing away.
Our tent that blew away that was on TV. Yeah.
Yes.
We still have the tent right now, and we're only seating outside at night and the day because it's just too cold at night.
Yeah.
And because we have that expanded side, we're just come on down. And you know, people ask me how I am, and my answer now is better every day. Like I am cautiously optimistic.
Well, we are wildly optimistic about the opportunities to just get back to hosting guests in person and having more conversations like this over a nice glass of wine. So
Cheers.
thank you so much.
Thank you so much.